Picture an elegant Elizabethan banquet hall, velvet drapes, golden goblets, and on the mantel, a severed hand, lacquered like fine art. Nobles weren't just hoarding jewels and silks, they had a darker hobby. Preserved skulls, embalmed hearts, even jars of miracle fat were paraded like trophies. For them, body parts weren't grotesque, they were status symbols, love charms, or cures. Welcome to a world where the line between sophistication and psychopathy was disturbingly thin. Let's count down the most bizarre obsessions. Pickled skulls of the executed. The scaffold was supposed to be the ending. A head lopped clean, a crowd roaring, blood soaking the straw it should have been the curtain call. But in Elizabethan England, death wasn't just theatre, it was collectible. Executioners learned quickly that nobles had a taste for souvenirs, and skulls were the crown jewels of the trade. For the right price, a head would disappear from its spike on London Bridge and reappear lacquered, pickled and polished in a nobleman's dining hall. Picture it, velvet curtains drawn, candles flickering, silver goblets raised and on the mantel, the hollow-eyed skull of some poor traitor staring back at the guests. These weren't morbid curiosities tucked away in cabinets, they were trophies of power, proof you could literally decorate your home with the heads of your enemies. The smell, rancid bone mixed with wine-soaked oak, but the symbolism, priceless. And so dinner parties turned into grotesque museums where politics, intimidation, and bone-dry conversation collided, because nothing spices up a banquet quite like a skull glaring at you between courses. The preserved hearts of lovers' roses wilt, poems fade. But in Elizabethan England, if you truly wanted to prove devotion, you gave your lover your heart literally, not the metaphorical hallmark kind, but the pulsating, fleshy organ itself. When death came, wealthy courtiers arranged for their hearts to be embalmed in wine, stuffed with herbs, and sealed inside ornate silver boxes. These morbid keepsakes were delivered like twisted love letters from beyond the grave. Some nobles slept with the boxes under their pillows, whispering secrets to a shriveled lump of muscle as though the dead might whisper back. Others carried them into duels or battle, clutching them like holy talismans, convinced a lover's heart could shield them from steel. Imagine unsheathing your sword with one hand while cradling a slimy relic of romance in the other. Chivalry had never smelled so pungent. Of course, time wasn't kind to these tokens. Hearts shriveled, blackened, leaked through their boxes. Nothing says eternal love quite like a slow rot soaking into your bedsheets. Still, in an age obsessed with drama, devotion was measured not by roses, but by how much blood you were willing to leave behind. Magical hands of glory. But hearts weren't the only organs nobles prized. Some preferred their trophies with fingers attached. Enter the hand of glory, the Elizabethan burglar's dream, and the noble collector's dark delight. When a thief dangled from the gallows, executioners sometimes sliced off the right hand, dried it in salt and horse dung, and sold it to the highest bidder. Once pickled, the hand became a magical tool, said to unlock doors, freeze guards in their sleep, and grant its owner supernatural power. Nobles snapped them up like rare antiques. Displayed in cabinets or tucked into chests, these grotesque relics were equal parts status symbol and conversation starter. Some even lit candles made from the hanged man's fat and placed them in the dead fingers, creating a nightmarish chandelier that supposedly immobilized everyone but the holder. Imagine entering a lord's chamber at midnight, only to find him grinning beneath the glow of a withered fist, burning like a macabre lantern. It was part sorcery, part superstition, and entirely grotesque, because nothing screams refinement like waving around a dried criminal's hand while insisting it works better than a locksmith. Hair as potion ingredient. If severed hands could unlock doors, then hair could unlock desire, or so Elizabethans believed. Forget roses and perfume. Nobles wanted strands of hair, preferably stolen, boiled, and mixed into potions. Apothecaries trafficked in bundles cut from corpses, plague victims, and prostitutes, selling them to desperate aristocrats who believed powdered locks could cure impotence, summon love, or even poison enemies. Wigmakers joined the trade, scouring graveyards like macabre harvesters, stripping corpses bald to meet the demand for towering hairpieces. Those shimmering blonde curls paraded through Elizabeth's court. Half the time they came from churchyard soil. Nobles strutted proudly, their scalps crawling with lice colonies fattened on second-hand follicles. Every bow, every flirtatious tilt of the head risked releasing a rain of tiny squirming soldiers into someone else's goblet. And yet, the filthier the sauce, the stronger the magic was said to be. Desire, death, and disease tangled together in wigs powdered white. In Elizabeth's glittering court, Beauty wasn't skin deep, it was scalp deep, and probably still twitching. Human fat as medicine. If hair could heal lust, fat was believed to heal everything else. Elizabethan apothecaries sold jars of rendered human fat marketed under the cheerful label of mummy ointment. Where did it come from? Executed criminals, boiled down like kitchen scraps until their flesh became greasy balm. Nobles rubbed it into wounds, smeared it over aching joints, and even stirred spoonfuls into wine for vitality. Imagine sipping your evening claret, enriched with the essence of some unlucky pickpocket hanged at dawn. Ladies of the court praised it as a beauty treatment, a kind of criminal cream that promised smooth skin and eternal youth. Doctors swore it carried the strength of the executed, as though raw power could seep through your pores. But in truth, it carried infection, gangrene, and a smell that clung like a curse. Still, nobles lined up for their daily dose, convinced that murderers made better medicine than herbs. And so England's finest strutted through court, glowing with the greasy sheen of death, their youth restored not by God, but by a felon's belly fat, teeth as jewelry, but fat wasn't enough. Nobles also wanted their smiles back, and the graveyard had plenty to offer. Rotten Tudor mouths needed constant repair, and dentistry was more carpentry than science. The solution? Pull teeth from corpses freshly dead if you were lucky, and hammer them into noble jaws like nails into wood. Court banquets echoed not just with gossip, but with the clatter of second-hand molars rattling against golden goblets. Those who had extras didn't waste them. Spare teeth were strung into necklaces, set into rings, even mounted on rosaries. A smile wasn't just cosmetic, it was currency. To flash perfect white pearls was to announce your wealth, even if the pearls had been yanked from a plague pit last week. Grave robbers fueled the trade, prying mouths open in the night and leaving burial grounds eerily toothless. So the Elizabethan elite preened and grinned, jaws sparkling with dead men's grins. Their laughter carried the echoes of the grave, every chuckle rattling like a skull. Because in a world obsessed with appearances, nothing said high status, quite like jewelry that used to bite back. Preserved fetuses as curiosities, and if teeth were too mundane, some nobles preferred their collections a little smaller, much smaller. Among the most grotesque treasures in Elizabethan cabinets were preserved fetuses, stillborns, miscarriages, or malformed infants suspended in glass jars. They floated in cloudy spirits, pale and translucent, their tiny limbs curled as if still clinging to life. To nobles, these weren't tragedies, they were conversation starters. Guests would gather around the cabinet, wine in hand, marveling at God's warning signs or the mysteries of nature. Some whispered that such specimens revealed divine punishment, others displayed them as rare curiosities, proof their household was enlightened enough to own death in miniature. Midwives were bribed, mothers coerced, and the unlucky unborn became decorations for parlours where poetry was recited. Imagine sipping mead while your host casually points to a jar, smiling. Ah yes, that one came from the baker's wife. Quite the specimen, don't you think? The nobles called it science. Today we'd call it exploitation wrapped in glass. In Elizabethan England, even the unborn couldn't escape becoming collectibles. Elizabethan nobles wanted to be remembered for grandeur, yet behind their portraits of pearls and lace lurked skulls, jars, and hands that once twitched on gallows. Their collections weren't about medicine or love, they were about power, vanity, and the thrill of owning death itself. Ironically, centuries later, those same nobles became dust in someone else's collection. Skeletons dug up, auctioned, displayed. The collectors became the collected, which makes you wonder whose teeth are smiling at you from history's cabinet now.